All right, everyone. The other day we had a funny news story, link in the description, archived, of course. I hate to tell the right-wingers on the channel, but I told you so. John Roberts is effectively a liberal. He was appointed by George W., also a liberal. Um, the idea of him being like far right or something is completely and totally wrong. When John Roberts came out the other day and slammed Donald Trump through insinuation. Justices tend to be very reluctant to weigh in on political issues directly, which is both beneficial and unbeneficial depending on the situation. Depends on what you wish them to rule on. John Roberts, though, insinuated that Donald Trump trying to impeach federal judges that were directly impeding him was somehow inappropriate. It's obvious that he was referring to Donald Trump. He did this before, by the way, in Trump's first term, actually, on one occasion. But the thing is, if a judge is quite clearly injuncting you outside of constitutional purview, so you're the commander in chief of the U.S. Armed Forces, but you're not allowed to make decisions related to the U.S. Armed Forces, when it is quite self-evidently clear that the decision that was made was itself unconstitutional, Roberts shouldn't have any jack dick to say about it. If anything, the Supreme Court should immediately take up those cases. I have no doubt that John Roberts will side with his fellow liberals on the court. I like how they call it a 6-3 court. There are six conservatives on it. No, there are four principled conservatives, one kind of sort of conservative, that's Coney Barrett, and then four liberals on the court. Roberts occasionally makes the right decision. And hopefully he fucks off and can be replaced by Donald Trump by somebody who's actually a bit more principled. Now, I don't look at it as conservative versus liberal anyway in the judicial sense, because that's not the point of the judiciary. The point of the judiciary is to study the Constitution and apply it and look at existing case law where applicable and past court decisions, the rationale behind them. These are all intelligent individuals. I mean, that part is definitely true. That includes the liberal justices. You don't get onto the Supreme Court without having a reasonably high IQ, for example. But they make wrong decisions sometimes. And federal court justices are no different. The fact is that the left has effectively turned to judge shopping and lawfare to try to stop Trump, who was duly and democratically elected. He won both the electoral and popular votes. The people rejected Kamala Harris and elected Trump. He has certain privileges and powers under his presidency. The military is one of them. Diplomacy is one of them. The border being managed by discretionary spending is one of them, and so forth. And judges have been trying to cock block him this entire time. But that's obviously, number one, not necessary, number two, not proper, and number three, not constitutional in many of these cases. Now, there are certain things that he's proposed that, of course, can be legally embattled. But when the legal battle is so lopsidedly, self-evidently, and objectively in one direction or the other, the Supreme Court Justice, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, should not be rambling about how Donald Trump is a bad person for saying that the judge should be impeached. And he's like, well, it's been a long-standing precedent that we don't impeach federal court justices. Okay, let's say that a federal court justice walks down the street today with a machete and guts several children. Do you think that they should still be a judge? Probably not. Well, that's basically what's being done to the U.S. Constitution in some of these cases. It is, quite literally. I mean, a judge injuncting Trump's commands to the U.S. military when he's literally the commander-in-chief, that's kind of abnormal too. And Robert should look at that and say, well, it's not long-standing precedent that we generally impeach federal court justices, but at the same time, we've had over 200 years of having the commander-in-chief command the military. So that's abnormal too now, isn't it? Of course, John Roberts ignores this, of course. That's because he's a friend of George W., to which he owes his job. And the W's are not big fans of the Trump movement. They have pretty much disappeared at this point and rarely seem to go out in public. There might be a reason for this, by the way. I think that they're pissed, actually, at the current administration. I don't think that they're really big fans of an administration that generally is reluctant to wage war. Because George W., he was probably fucking drinking and beating off to war footage during the Iraq invasion. He was watching the CNN reels just the same as everyone else, only he took glee in it and thought it was a great thing. Look at them pretty fireworks. Dear, those are explosives. Well, that's even better. Basically his mentality. John Roberts, by the way, is a symbol of the death of neoconservatism. He's on his way out. He's getting older now. He's a neocon, a Bushite. That era has ended already. He clings to his position primarily to be a thorn in the side of the MAGA movement because the neocons fucking hate it. And so that's basically the dynamic. That's basically what's happening currently. When he comes out and he insinuates that Trump is doing something wrong by saying, hey, let me do my job. The Constitution is obvious on some of these issues, and yet I'm going to be dragged through court for months or even years on these issues. Trump's not doing anything wrong. He's fundamentally correct. Look, the Constitution doesn't need constant reinterpretation. It's pretty plain. It's in very, very plain terms. Most of the constitutional amendments are only a couple sentences long. It doesn't take a genius to figure out, assuming that you understand historical context when they were crafted, what the meaning was. For example, the right of women to vote, women's suffrage. That means women can vote. Oh, let's reinterpret it. No, no, no. Actually, the people of the time, they would have said that only certain women were allowed to vote. Probably only white women, by the way. There's an age cutoff. If you put limitations on it, that vast reinterpretation would be unacceptable to the public. It would be unacceptable ethically. It would be unacceptable constitutionally. But they keep trying to reinterpret elements of the Constitution and established law over and over and over again. Look at the Second Amendment. It's been cut to pieces, for example. Well, it's because of the 10th, it's okay if the second is denigrated. Some people have more rights than others. So in this state, you can own, the 50-round barrel. In that state, you can only have a 10-round mag. In this state, it's okay to have an AR-15. In that state, it's not okay. This is perfectly fine, according to the Supreme Court currently. Makes absolutely no sense. Oh, and by the way, the federal government is allowed to censor you vicariously using private groups as third parties. That's perfectly okay as well. Yeah, fuck the First Amendment. Right to privacy? Haha, well, asshole, you cede that the second that you do anything or say anything that we don't happen to like. States' rights are absolute, as long as it's anti-gunnery involved. But not if they have a national border, and not if they want to limit certain behaviors or promote others. Only the federal government can do that. It's all screwy, the number of decisions that have been made. Maybe we need a clean slate. Clear out all established case law and all bills. Have a sundowning bill. I do approve of that, by the way. So that things that aren't reauthorized, they just go the way of the dinosaur. That would significantly reduce bureaucratic power too. It sounds like a good idea. But John Roberts, though, he really takes the cake. Look, I respect the liberal justices, like the dedicated, Dem-appointed liberal justices, more than I respect John Roberts because he's such a goddamn turncoat. At this point, Amy Coney Barrett is the pivot of the Supreme Court, and occasionally Brett Kavanaugh, although they sometimes dissent from one another. That's about all. Peace out.